At 30,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean, Flight 247 from Honolulu to Los Angeles cruised steadily under a golden sunset sky, its passengers relaxed, flight attendants smiling, and the hum of the engines steady as a heartbeat. Among the passengers sat a 12-year-old girl named Emily Carter, a quiet, curious child with long brown hair tied in a braid and eyes that loved the sky more than anything else in the world. Her father, an aircraft mechanic, had filled her childhood with stories about airplanes, explaining every button, every dial, and how the magic of lift kept heavy metal birds flying through the heavens. She had even visited cockpits on family flights before the rules got stricter, and she had watched her father fix planes with his rough but gentle hands. On this flight, Emily sat in seat 14A by the window, tracing clouds with her finger, dreaming about becoming a pilot one day. The captain's calm voice occasionally broke through the intercom, announcing their altitude, their route, their progress, and everything seemed utterly ordinary, until, within a heartbeat, the world tilted. It started as a low shudder through the floor, a sound like distant thunder rolling through metal. Then a sudden drop in the engine tone. Passengers looked up. A strange smell of burning air conditioning fluid drifted through the cabin. The seatbelt sign blinked on. A flight attendant tried to keep her voice calm while asking everyone to stay seated. Emily's heart raced as she looked out the window. Nothing looked wrong, but the plane had begun to tilt slightly, unnaturally. The pilot's voice came again, but this time, there was strain in it. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a minor technical issue, please remain calm and seated." The tone did not match the words. 30 seconds later, the plane jolted violently, sending drinks flying, and a scream ripped through the cabin. The plane steadied for a moment, then began to descend too quickly. Inside the cockpit, both pilots, Captain Reynolds and First Officer Hughes, had suddenly felt dizzy. Unknown to them, a small leak in the cabin's oxygen system near the cockpit had slowly been seeping air, and while the passenger cabin still had pressure, the cockpit's concentration of oxygen had dropped below safe levels. Hypoxia crept in, silent and invisible. Within minutes, the captain's speech slurred, the first officer's vision blurred, and before they could deploy emergency oxygen, both slumped unconscious. The autopilot, disengaged by mistake during the turbulence, left the aircraft drifting downward in a shallow but increasing descent. In the cabin, the flight attendants realized the intercom had gone silent. Panic began to ripple. Emily, gripping the armrest, saw the angle of the horizon tilting outside the window. "Dad, what's happening?" she asked. Though her father wasn't there, she was flying home alone from visiting her grandparents. A flight attendant ran past toward the cockpit, banging on the door, shouting for the pilots. No answer. Another attendant tried to call them from the jump seat, but the line was dead silent. Fear began to thicken the air. Some passengers were crying, some praying, others frozen. The cabin crew tried to calm everyone, but when they finally used the emergency key to open the cockpit door, what they saw made their blood run cold. Both pilots were slumped in their seats, eyes half open, motionless. The controls were tilted forward, lights flashing. The plane was descending fast, 30,000, 28,000, 25,000 feet and dropping. The senior flight attendant grabbed the oxygen masks from the wall and shouted for help. "Does anyone here know how to fly a plane?" The words felt unreal, but she had to ask. Silence. Until a small, trembling hand rose halfway in the air. Emily stood, her heart hammering. I know a little," she said softly. People turned to stare. "My dad fixes airplanes," she added, her voice thin but steady, "and I've used a flight simulator, just a game, but I know what the controls do." The attendant blinked, unsure, desperate. "Come with me," she said. The girl followed, weaving through terrified passengers to the cockpit. The sight inside stunned her. The flashing screens, the warning tones, the oxygen masks dangling. Her mind raced, trying to recall everything her father had ever taught her. She climbed into the captain's seat, her feet barely reaching the rudder pedals. Okay, she whispered to herself, aviate, navigate, communicate. She remembered those 3 words her father had repeated whenever he explained flying. The first rule: fly the plane. She grabbed the control column, gently pulled it back to level the nose, and steadied her breathing. Outside, the altimeter showed 22,000 and falling. She turned to the flight attendant. "I need the headset." The attendant handed it over, hands shaking. Emily put it on, searching for the transmit button. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Flight 247, both pilots are unconscious, we're descending fast, please help," she said, her voice trembling but clear. Static, then a calm voice responded. "Flight 247, this is LAX Center, copy your mayday, who's speaking?" "My name is Emily Carter," she said, trying not to cry. "I'm 12 years old, I'm in the cockpit, both pilots blacked out, I'm trying to control the plane." The frequency went silent for half a second, then the controller's tone changed to one of firm, focused calm. "Okay Emily, you're doing great, stay calm, we're going to help you. First, look at the attitude indicator, blue over brown. Yes. Keep the line between them level. Good. What's your altitude? 20,000 feet. Good job, now slowly pull back just a little, steady, that's it. We see you on radar, we'll guide you all the way." Back on the ground, emergency teams scrambled, the Air Force was alerted, and a veteran pilot named Captain John Michaels was patched in to talk Emily through every step. "Hi Emily, I'm Captain John, I've got you," his calm voice said through the headset. "You're doing something very brave. First, we need to stop your descent. Gently pull back until your vertical speed indicator reads 0. Emily followed his instructions, watching the gauges, the sky leveling in front of her. "Good girl," he said, "you just saved everyone for now." Tears filled her eyes, but she focused. "Now we're going to bring you down safely. You see the autopilot switch on your right? Yes. Press it, then press altitude hold." She did. The plane stabilized at 18,000 feet. "Perfect. Now we're going to head toward Los Angeles. Turn the heading knob slowly to 270. Outside, night was falling, stars blinking into view, and the ocean stretched endlessly below. Inside the cabin, passengers were silent, praying. The flight attendants whispered that a 12-year-old girl was flying the plane. Some didn't believe it, others clutched their hands together in awe. Emily kept listening to Captain John's calm voice. "You're doing perfectly, Emily. You're going to start a gentle descent in a few minutes. When I say so, reduce your throttle slightly. You'll feel the plane lower its nose, but keep it steady." For the next 30 minutes, guided by a team of controllers and pilots, Emily flew the massive jet through the darkening sky, keeping it level, calm, and stable. Her small hands trembled but never left the controls. She remembered her father's words, "The plane wants to fly. Just let it." Down below, the lights of California's coast shimmered like a promise. As they approached Los Angeles airspace, Captain John came on again. "Emily, you're doing amazing. Now we're going to prepare to land. I'll talk you through everything. We'll use autopilot to line up, and you'll bring her down slow." "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Set altitude to 3,000 feet, heading 245. Perfect. Now deploy flaps to position 1. Emily reached for the flap lever and moved it carefully. The plane slowed slightly, engines humming lower. "You should see the city lights ahead." "I do," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks, "it's beautiful." "That's your runway. You're going to follow the lights straight in." The control tower at LAX cleared all air traffic, emergency vehicles lined the runway, and news crews were already gathering, unaware that a child was at the controls. "Now Emily," Captain John said softly, "autopilot off. You've got the airplane. Just like your simulator. Keep her steady, slight back pressure on the yoke. That's it. Perfect." The ground rushed closer. Throttle to idle. Flaps full. "Hold it, now gently pull." The wheels touched the runway with a screech, bounced once, then rolled smoothly. The cabin erupted in screams and applause. Emily held the brakes, slowed the plane, and finally stopped at the end of the runway. She sat there, frozen, staring at the lights ahead, her hands trembling violently. The radio crackled. "Flight 247, welcome to Los Angeles, Emily, you did it." She started crying, shaking, laughing all at once. The flight attendants ran forward, hugging her as paramedics rushed aboard to reach the unconscious pilots, who were quickly given oxygen and began to recover. When Captain Reynolds opened his eyes and learned what had happened, he looked at the small girl who had saved everyone and whispered, "You're the bravest pilot I've ever met." Later that night, after everyone was safe and passengers had been reunited with their families, Emily sat on the steps outside the terminal wrapped in a blanket. The moon hung above, calm and silver. Reporters gathered nearby, but she ignored them. Her thoughts were with her father. When he arrived, eyes full of tears, he dropped to his knees and hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. "You did it, sweetheart," he whispered. "You saved them all." The FAA called her a miracle, the youngest person to ever guide a commercial aircraft to safety. But Emily didn't think of herself as a hero. She thought of the people she saw praying, the flight attendants who trusted her, the calm voice of Captain John, and the sky that she had always loved. Months later, she was invited to visit an airfield. Captain Reynolds met her there, fully recovered, and placed his old captain's wings in her palm. "For the youngest pilot to ever take command," he said with a smile. She looked at the runway stretching into the distance, the sunlight glinting off planes preparing to take flight, and she knew then what her life would be. She would fly, not because of fame, not because of fear, but because she understood what it meant to trust the sky. Years later, Emily Carter would earn her pilot's license on her 18th birthday, and every time she took off, she remembered that night at 30,000 feet when courage, faith, and a steady hand had turned a child into a savior among the clouds. And sometimes, when she spoke to young students about flying, she would tell them quietly that bravery isn't about age or size, it's about the heart that refuses to give up even when the world seems to be falling from the sky.